What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking about summertime shaky heads, different hooks, different baits to help you catch more fish right now. Now, as simple as shaky head fishing sounds, there's a lot to it, and it can be a fairly simple technique. Grab your favorite shaky head, or just grab a shaky head, put your favorite straight tail worm hook worm on the hook and go fishing. But believe it or not, there's all different styles of heads, all different styles and sizes of worms, and I'm gonna try and help you simplify it for your summertime bass fishing. I love throwing a shaky head. Hopefully you guys saw, I don't know, it was a couple weeks back, I did a summer worm fishing video where I talked about Texas rigs, Carolina rigs, big shaky heads. I talked about a bunch of that stuff. Angle this down for you. Talked about a bunch of that stuff, but today we're covering shaky heads more in depth because there's so many different, like I said, so many different heads on the market, so many different hook sizes, head shapes. There's tungsten heads, all sorts of stuff, and it can be overwhelming when you're shopping in a tackle shop or online. Which head should I go with, especially for summertime? Am I ledge fishing or am I offshore rock pile fishing? What size, what shape head do I need? Do I need some kind of like football head style, or do I need some kind of arky style head? Maybe just like a horseshoe style head. All different types and styles, and hopefully by the end of this video today, it'll be really simple for you, and you can pick out 2 or 3 of your favorite head shapes, a couple of your favorite different worms, and go catch some fish right now. So, summer fishing, worm fishing. You know, it's not always power fishing. It's not always frog fishing or punching or flipping, buzz baits, whopper ploppers. Sometimes you have to slow down and finesse fish. I say finesse fish as I'm holding like a 13-inch shaky head or a 8-inch bull worm, right? You can throw some magnum size shaky heads, but sometimes you have to slow down. Like I said, maybe you're ledge fishing, it's all current driven. Those fish are waiting for that current. Once that current gets going, they pull to those ledges and it's go time, it's feeding time. You've tried your hair jigs, your flutter spoons, your big heavy jigs. Sometimes you just need to throw a shaky head. Sometimes you need to throw a little bit smaller shaky head to get those fish to eat, to bite. Highland reservoirs, lowland reservoirs, summertime, not getting them on top water, not getting them on a jig. Sometimes you just need to slow drag that shaky head worm and get that tail just dancing up there in the current just enough to kind of coerce those fish into eating. Now, a shaky head. First off, I don't know why it's called a shaky head. It's just always been called a shaky head. When I'm fishing a quote-unquote shaky head, I'm hardly ever just sitting there just shaking the worm. I'm usually dragging it and then I'll pop it up, like do 2 pops. So I'm dragging, I feel rock, pop, pop, popping up 6, 8, 10 inches off bottom, letting it fall. That head comes down, that tail's up there just doing this, thunk, you feel that bite, or it just loads up. I'm never just sitting there in one spot just shaking it, right? I'm never doing that. Sometimes I'll do that with a drop shot because that bait's on bottom, that worm's just sitting there shaking, but it's not moving towards me at all. That worm's just shaking. But a shaky head, you're directly in contact with the bottom, right? Your line tie is typically in front of the head. Show you guys a little bit bigger head right there. And you're feeling what that head is feeling, right? You're feeling that gravel, you're feeling that chunk rock, you're feeling that clay. You're just in direct contact with bottom. And that's why I like throwing a shaky head versus an unpegged Texas rig or a Carolina rig, right? It's more reactive. Every little rod twitch or every little hop, that line is connected right to that heavy head, and it's making that worm react, right? It's coming up, it's coming down, that tail's up there shaking. So it's a reactive bait. A lot of times, summertime, I'm either stroking a jig or hopping a shaky head, but then once I pop it up and I let it fall, then you get that real subtle action, right? A jig, you're not getting that subtle action. You might get a little bit of like skirt flare or pulsating, but that shaky head, especially a good shaky head, and we're gonna cover that, because to me, a worm that floats means the difference between bites and no bites in tough situations, especially with a shaky head. So I got a couple different worms that I really like throwing. But we talked about heads a little bit. So there's football style heads, there's arky style heads, there's horseshoe style heads, finesse heads, there's all sorts of heads. More importantly is your hook size, okay? So like here is a 5/0. This is a Dirty Jigs finesse head. This is a Dirty Jig Scott Canterbury head. It's a 4/0 versus a 5/0. You guys see that size difference? Okay. If I'm fishing day in and day out, if I'm just going to a lake I've never been to, or I'm going to a lake, I'm tying on a shaky head, hands down, day in and day out, it's this combo right here. That is the Canterbury head. That is a 5/0 hook. I'm sorry, 4/0 hook. And that is the T-Mac. That is the NetBait T-Mac. If you guys want to end this video right here, you just want to get one shaky head, get that Canterbury head, get that shaky head in June bug, and you guys will catch a lot of bass this summer. But there's more to it. So day in and day out, if I'm going fishing with a shaky head, it's going to be that combo right there. Either that combo right there, or this Deception worm by X-Zone. You guys have heard me talk about that worm recently. That T-Mac or that Deception. Both sit vertically in the water. They have real good float. The Deception's a little bit better high float. It's a little bit softer bait, but that T-Mac, I mean, we've done videos where we've had a challenge, like Hunter Bass Challenge, and 95 of the bass of the 100 were on that June bug T-Mac. It's just a fish catching machine. So right now, Canterbury head, T-Mac, that is a winner. But say I'm fishing out here on Chickamauga or Gunnersville, and I don't want to be throwing an 8-inch bullworm. I still want to be throwing a smaller profile worm. I'm going with that 5/0 finesse head. It's a little bit thicker wire, more stout of a hook. And I do this when I'm targeting big fish areas. Now, I don't know what you consider big fish. I just know that I have been bent out on fish that I wish I hadn't been. So anything 5 pounds, in my mind, anything bigger than 5 pounds, I'm trying to have the odds in my favor. I'm throwing a little bit bigger wire hook. I don't want that thing bending out, especially when you're fishing like, say Chickamauga here, where you have any cast, you have the ability to catch a double-digit bass. Okay, let me rig this for you. So this right there, that is the 5/0. See that wire? It's a lot more stout wire, so I'm not going to worry about bending that hook out. Now I can throw this on a bait caster. That gets me to my next point. A lot of guys, I'd say a very high percentage of guys, are going to throw this setup right here on a spinning rod. Maybe a 2 or 3 power spinning rod, something with a little fast action. So your Nico rig rod, or your little heavier drop shot rod, or your Senko rod, you can throw this on that. When I'm fishing these types of fisheries, summertime, I'm around big fish, I throw my shaky heads on a bait caster. I just feel like when you hook a big fish on a shaky or on a bait caster, you have so much more control than you do with a spinning reel, a spinning setup. And that's really, I've kind of really proven the point to myself with the advancement, or at least my gear with BFS, right? I'm eliminating a lot of my spinning rod combos. I'm throwing BFS gear, bait finesse, on bait casters, you know, catching 5-6 pound smallmouth on a bait caster, and I'm not, you know, those fish are jumping and everything, and I'm in control. Whereas a spinning rod, that thing loads up, zzz, you know, it's peel and drag, and you're just kind of along for the ride. I've really kind of switched gears, and when I'm trying to catch big fish, I'm just going with that bait caster. So that 5/0 more stout of a hook allows me to cast and play these fish better when I set the hook and get them in the boat. So I really like to throw a shaky head on a bait caster. So if you can, take your favorite 3-power rod, 4-power rod, your medium heavy action, a medium power, fast action rod, and tie yourself on one of these guys. Again, I'm not always throwing big Magnum shaky heads. Heck, if I want to go for a big bite or a giant bite, I'm going to be throwing that big Wormser on this. This is actually a 9/0 owner ultra head right there. Okay. The other thing that I want to talk about is the keeper system on these guys. See how they have, most of these are going to have, all the ones I use have some kind of screw lock keeper system on there. Whether it's free swinging or it's attached to the head. What I like to do, I like to take that spring and kind of bend it up. What that allows that bait to do, I'll go ahead and rig another one for you. Let me rig this T-Mac for you. It allows that bait to sit straighter up in the water. Okay, it changes that angle. So the reason that I love throwing a screw lock, it just keeps that bait straight. It makes it easy. You just spin it right on, thread it right on. It lines up that head for you perfectly. And then because I went ahead and bent that out, now it allows that bait to sit more vertically. Okay, so play around with your little wire screw lock on there. You can bend them down, bend them up, bend them down. It's going to be more flat, but that kind of defeats the purpose, right? You don't want this worm down there on bottom like that. You want your worm down there like that, because you want this tail floating. You want that thing just dancing in the current. So depending on the type of fishery you're fishing and depending on the type of fish you are after, totally depends on the shaky head that you choose. Okay, so hopefully that shed a little bit of light on there. Again, that day in and day out is going to be that that 4/0 Canterbury head with that T-Mac. Again, if I'm going after a little bit larger fish, I'm going to go up to that 5/0 Dirty Jigs finesse head, and that is about as simple as I'm going to make those. If you are a guy that is fishing, say, spotted bass, clear water, and you need something with a little lighter wire hook, so kind of the opposite of what I was just talking about, this guy right here is awesome. That is an owner ultra head 4/0. Okay, but it's a lighter wire hook. So now if you are a guy that is fishing a spinning rod, say 6, 7, 8 pound test, 10 pound test line, you can still set that hook. Whereas if you were trying to set that big 5/0 heavy wire, you're gonna have issues. You're not gonna get a lot of good hook penetration. You're gonna lose a lot of fish, because that fish, you're not gonna get that hook set all the way in that fish's mouth, that hook penetration in that fish's mouth. And as they come up in head shake, that hook is gonna work its way out, and you're gonna lose that fish. And that we do not wanna do that. So if you are a guy like, that's a good finesse worm. Say the net bait finesse worm or the little flex worm. This is a 7-inch, here's a 7-inch flex. Here's the 5-inch flex worm. If you want to do a little flex worm, this is on a black, this is that same 4/0 light wire hook. straighten that guy out there for you. That's a lighter wire hook. Again, look how clean that presentation is, opposed to that 5/0. See, it's quite a bit smaller. So if you're a guy that's using lighter line, lighter tackle, go with that ultra head, that owner ultra head in a 4/0 light wire, and you can throw your favorite 5 or 6 inch worm, even your 4.5 inch worms, and really, truly finesse fish. Now, summertime shaky head fishing, in my mind, it's more reaction driven than just dragging like a true finesse presentation. And it might just be me, might just be my opinion, but you know, out here on the Tennessee River, it's all current driven. You're spot hopping, you're jumping, moving. You're trying to find those schools of fish. You're not just sitting there and just soaking a worm. So even though I'm not shaking it real aggressively, I'm fishing it fairly fast. You throw it out there, let it hit bottom, pop it up, let it hit bottom, kind of drag, feel something, pop it up. You know, I'm working it fairly quickly, and then it's on to the next spot if I'm not getting bit, especially if I don't see fish on the side imaging or down imaging, I'm moving. But if you're that guy, highland, lowland reservoirs, you're fishing a main lake point, a rock pile, those fish have moved out onto that break, maybe it's a river channel, that ledge or that break, and you know there's fish there and you just want to soak that worm, absolutely go with that 4/0 owner ultra head. That is the hook for you, okay? Comes in different heads, weights. Again, I like to throw a little bit heavier because I'm popping up and I'm crashing down, popping up, crashing down. Like I said, it's just a style. If you're more of that reactive style, like you like to stroke a jig, go with the heavier style heads. Couple other heads or a couple other worms I want to talk about real quick. This guy right here, I've always thrown the Robo Worm 6-inch fat worm. Up until about 2 years ago, Missile Baits came out with that magic worm. So it's the colors are from Robo Worm, so you get same great colors. It's a little bit thicker, fatter worm, and I really like throwing that on a shaky head. I talked about the T-Mac already. June bug, 100%, that is the way to go. And then that deception worm, this guy right here. I've mentioned some of X-Zone's products in a lot of my, or a few of my latest worm fishing videos, drop shot videos, summer worm fishing video, just because discovered them basically at the Classic. They had a booth right up front. They had a tank with all their baits sitting in the tank, and they're just a softer bait. They're a real high float bait, and they look amazing. So this is the deception worm versus that T-Mac. You can see it's quite a bit smaller, has great action. You can even get away with this if you're a guy that's a highland or lowland reservoir fisherman, light line, you can get away with throwing that on the ultra head too. But this guy right here is a really, really good looking worm, especially underwater. That thing stands up. Like I said, it's that high float. I don't even know what you want to call it, but it looks really good. Again, bend, when you rig that thing, bend that screw lock up so you can really maximize that vertical standing, you know, that movement of that worm. You want that tail up there dancing. And again, you're hopping it up, letting it fall. That worm is just kind of, those fish just come in, and a lot of times your rod's just gonna load up, you reel down and set on them. But that deception worm, and then that flex worm, that's the 7 right here. And that little bit smaller one right there. Two big shaky head worms. If you're a guy that likes to throw magnum worms in the summertime, maybe you're night fishing, a lot of guys will Carolina rig or Texas rig a big curly tail worm. On the flip side, straight tail worms. Okay, this is the 8-inch. That is the Strike King bull worm. That's the owner ultra head. That's the 8/0. Really stout hook. You're not gonna bend that guy out. That is an 8/0 heavy wire hook. That's a 1/2 ounce head. Again, fishing that heavier head, it's coming down. You're fishing this the same area as you would fish a heavy 1/2 1/2 ounce, 5/8, 3/4 ounce jig, right? You're looking for big baits. Again, that's that Strike King bullworm, and this is the Wormser by Magnum Baits. You guys have seen me talk about that before. It's kind of a flatter style worm. Okay, it's got a flatter, more oval body with a flatter tail, so this thing has a ton of action in the current. But that is a bait that I like to throw. I'll start out throwing that bigger worm. Say I try the hair jig or the flutter spoon. The fish are more on bottom. I'll throw that big Wormser out there, and again, I'm fishing it fast. I'm not letting it lay on bottom. I'm kind of hopping it, letting it fall, dragging, shaking, hopping it, and I'm getting real reactive with it. I try that first, and then I will downsize and go with, you know, the 5/0 or the 4/0, but I'll throw that T-Mac. So I will start with that larger worm and then work smaller. But guys, there's a reason there's 100 different shaky heads on the market. They all have different heads, different head styles, different hooks. Don't throw a head that has too much power in the hook or too light a wire in the hook. You don't want to be losing fish. Again, if you want to be a finesse fisherman or you really feel like you have to downsize and finesse fish, go with that Owner Ultra head. Again, it's that Owner hook. Can't go wrong with that. And if you're a true giant chaser, try some of these a little bit larger worms. But in between, I'll link all the stuff down below in the video description. That Owner Ultra head, that 4/0, that Canterbury Arky style head comes through rock really, really well. Doesn't get hung up nearly as often. Got a good line tie on it on the face of that bait right there. That's my day in and day out head paired up with that T-Mac. And then if you're a guy that's fishing around a little bit bigger fish, say you're in Texas or Florida or out here on the Tennessee River, Alabama, Gunnersville, Georgia, California, throw that 5/0 with a little bit heavier wire and you guys will not bend out fish. But guys, hopefully that simplified summer shaky head fishing. Again, straight tail worms, there's hundreds of those on the market as well. That Deception worm, the T-Mac, the Flex worm, that Magic worm, the Missile, 6-inch fat Robo worm. Those are all great, great options. Again, that Deception, that T-Mac really shined underwater. And then colors. I like to, you can see on almost all these colors, I like to throw a version of Junebug. That just seems to be the #1 color for me in the summertime. Junebug. Sometimes I'll go, this is called PB&J. It's like a brown with purple. Margarita Mutilator 3 is another great color. But green pumpkin, black flake, green pumpkin, blue flake, you know, those little darker colors, that more contrasty colors really seem to get bit more in the summertime. I don't know if it's because of algae bloom or stuff in the water, but just that contrasty color seems to get bit, at least for me, a lot better than some of your lighter, more ghosty, natural looking colors. Down below, I'll link all the stuff, my favorite combinations, the different worms, the heads, the hook sizes, paired up for the different categories. And someone's having a good time out there. And I'll link all that stuff down below in the description for you guys. But if you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. I'll try to get those as soon as possible. Summertime worm fishing, especially shaky head fishing, can be the difference of hooking and losing your biggest bass of your life, or hooking and netting the biggest bass of your life. Again, I'm targeting key pieces of structure with these. They're weedless. You can fish them through brush piles, around brush piles, dock pilings, laydowns, grass edges, all of it. It's weedless. It's subtle. The fish eat them. Don't be a sleeper on summer shaky head worms, guys. These will help catch more fish, I promise you. Down below, leave your comments. I'll link everything in the video description. As always, guys, thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit your thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.